On July the 10th, 2025, at the age of 67, I underwent cochlear implant surgery. 6 months later, I'm awaiting a detailed investigation of my implant and appraisal of my situation because my symptoms are so unusual. Here's what's happening. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm 67 years old, and this video is probably going to be different from what you might expect about cochlear implants. I'm making this because I think it's important to share the reality of what can happen after surgery, not to scare anybody, but because if things don't go perfectly for you, you need to know that you're not alone. This is my real-time journey, and yes, I will be creating updated videos as we go to update you on the progress, especially after my upcoming CT scan at the end of this month. So let's go back to where it all started. Like millions of people, especially of my age, I've been dealing with hearing loss over the years. It's gradually gotten worse, and it was affecting my quality of life. Conversations with family, watching TV, and so on. Basically, everyday interactions were becoming increasingly more difficult. After many consultations and assessments, I made the decision to go ahead with the cochlear implant. I knew the risks, I knew there were no guarantees, but I also knew that doing nothing was no longer an option. I went into it with realistic expectations. So this is a quick video before the main video that you're about to watch, if you bother to watch it. I made the main video last week and didn't get round to uploading it, and since making the main video things have got quite a bit worse, to be fair. So today is Wednesday the 17th of December. Last week on Tuesday I woke up at around 5:30 a.m. Obviously my processor wasn't attached because I was still in bed. I'd only just woke up. Felt a little bit dizzy as I moved. Within a few seconds, tinnitus started. Dizziness didn't last for long at all, only literally like a minute maybe, I'm not sure. However, the tinnitus was extremely loud, and this time it lasted all day. I went to bed on the night, it was still going. Tuesday night I went to bed, it was still going. It was back at a manageable level, but it was still very loud. I fell asleep, got up the next morning, everything back to normal. Didn't use my processor much that day. Saturday we had a family gathering. Attended the family gathering, used my processor for probably 3-4 hours maximum, not sure. Next day, Sunday, same thing again. Tinnitus in the morning, lasted all day long. Went to bed on the night, got to sleep eventually. Monday morning, got up, all seemed back to normal again. Yesterday, I used my processor on and off during the day, trying to be conservative with it really, just using it when I needed it. On the evening, processor not attached, sat watching the TV, subtitles on the TV, sudden loud buzzing noise, low pitched, no high pitched tinnitus this time, mild dizziness which lasted literally less than 20 seconds I would say probably. But the tinnitus didn't go away. It settled at a reasonably good volume, if that's a way to describe it. And eventually I went to bed fairly early, about 8:30, fed up a bit, got to sleep, woke up just after midnight, inadvertently scratched my ear, or the area near to it, I can't remember, I was half asleep. It was a massive tinnitus attack, but this time also accompanied by not lots of pain, but enough discomfort that I needed to take the codeine tablets that they gave me to manage the pain after the operation. When I got up this morning, the pain was still there. I took some paracetamol. It's now mid-afternoon. The pain's gone, to be fair, but I've come to the conclusion now that this is just not usable at all. I can't risk using it anymore until something is done to resolve this problem one way or the other, whether I have surgery again and it's removed, or we find out there's a problem with it and it needs replacing. I really don't know, but I cannot risk using it anymore. I've got an appointment this Friday for remapping at the QE. I will attend, but it'll be a waste of time because I'm not using the processor, but at least I can tell the people what's going on. Even though they're not medical, they can pass my thoughts and comments on, hopefully, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, end of the month, CT scan. With a bit of luck, it might reveal something. I really don't know, but I'm just assuming that the nerves around the implants are inflamed or something like that. I really don't know, but it's just getting too much. There you go. July the 10th, 2025 was surgery day at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham. Now, I'll be completely honest, I'm a total wuss when it comes to medical procedures. I was nervous, to say the least, but the experience was actually better than I'd expected. The operation started at around 8:30 in the morning, and by 2 p.m. the same day I was heading home. Day surgery, minimal pain. The only problem was the first couple of nights, just a bit uncomfortable because I had to sleep on my back, and I'm definitely a side sleeper. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. I was recovering well and feeling optimistic. Then came switch on day. On August the 25th, 2025, this was supposed to be the big moment, the day I thought I might magically start to be able to hear properly again. I walked into the appointment with high hopes. I walked out feeling a little bit disappointed, I have to be honest. The initial sound quality was nothing like I'd expected. Everybody sounded like robotic chipmunks. I know they tell you it takes time. Your brain needs to adjust, rewire itself. But emotionally, it was challenging and it was disappointing. Still, I'm not a quitter, and in fact, I'm ever the optimist. I stuck with it, kept using the processor, went to a couple of follow-up appointments where they made the appropriate adjustments to the mapping levels, and slowly things started to improve. I was starting to hear better. I understand speech more clearly, and I thought to myself, we're on the right track here. I was able to listen to music again, albeit at a rather excessive volume for everybody but me. On Saturday 11th of October, I even managed to watch the football and listen to the commentator for the first time in years and understand him. My hearing was as close to perfect again as I could have ever hoped for. I was able to hold conversations with friends and family for the first time in a long time. Then came October the 14th. Before surgery, I remember being told at one of the pre-op meetings, if you experience any dizziness or if you fall over, seek medical advice immediately. On Tuesday, October the 14th, 2025, 8:36 a.m, I was standing in our conservatory when I suddenly heard several blip-blip sounds in my ear. Within about 15 seconds, I was flat on my back on the floor. Everything was spinning violently. I was experiencing severe vertigo, not just mild dizziness. The volume through my processor became unbearable, basically rip it off my head. For 20 minutes I couldn't move. The world was spinning around me. Then came the high-pitched tinnitus sounds, a screaming sound in my right ear that kept getting louder and louder. I genuinely thought it wouldn't stop. Eventually it levelled off, but I have to admit that while it lasted, I was quite concerned, to say the least. I managed to crawl to the bathroom. I was violently sick. I couldn't stand, I couldn't walk. I ended up on the bathroom floor, prostrate and unable to get up or move. After managing to text my wife, who was at work, she called the ambulance and the paramedics arrived at 11:30 a.m. 3 hours after it started, and there I was still prostrate, lying on the bathroom floor. Eventually, they managed to get me up and took me to the Alexandra Hospital in Redditch. The doctors examined me, gave me an injection for the vertigo, which had absolutely no effect. Sent me home at 9 p.m. that night with antibiotics. The next day, I have to say the audiology team at the QE were brilliant. I couldn't walk without assistance, but they got me in immediately, recalibrated my processor, and I was able to use it again. My symptoms improved rapidly. I thought maybe it was just a one-off, a bad reaction, something that wouldn't happen again. 2 weeks later, Tuesday, October the 28th, 8:46 a.m. It happened again. Same symptoms, slightly less severe to be fair. Probably because I was upstairs and I could lie down immediately. Also probably because I knew what to expect. But it still lasted for approximately 4 hours. Back to audiology the next day. Another recalibration. They explained that the volume changes observed in the processor were likely due to the changes in the impedance of the fluid surrounding the cochlea. This made perfect sense to be fair. I felt somewhat reassured. 1 week later, Tuesday again, amazingly, bit weird, 2:30 p.m. exactly. I was sitting in the living room when our grandfather clock struck the half hour. It literally felt like somebody hit me in the head with a baseball bat. The volume was that loud. Same experience, but again, briefer. The spinning only lasted a few seconds, but the tinnitus ramped and lasted about 2 hours. Then, Saturday, November the 8th, another episode, even shorter this time. So, you're beginning to see the pattern. The episodes were becoming less severe individually, but they were happening more frequently. And every single one seemed to be triggered by something. Maybe the pressure on the implant, or even just scratching an itch on my ear too hard. On the 13th of November, I sent a long email to the audiology department. On the 13th of November, I sent a detailed email to the audiology department. At this point, I was around 4 months post-surgery. After the attack on November the 4th, I stopped using my processor. To be completely frank, I was afraid to use it. When I put the processor on, I immediately felt more unbalanced. Even though I can hear well with it, the anxiety of triggering another episode is overwhelming, to be honest. I have a constant sensation in the area of the implant. Sometimes there's mild pain, but mostly it feels like there's pressure there. If I strain, if I lift something, if I cough too hard, the ear feels blocked, like it needs to pop. Here's what I've noticed through observation. When I lean to my left, I immediately get a low humming sound, followed by a rapid increase in high-pitched tinnitus. When I lean to the right, the sensations decrease almost immediately. One evening, as I was watching TV, I had an itch on my right ear. Without thinking, I scratched it quite hard. The result was very similar to all the previous attacks, just from putting pressure on the implant area. I'm forced to sleep on my left side to avoid putting pressure on the implant. I've documented everything. I've sent detailed reports to my audiology department. This is the email I sent. This next part of the video is basically me reading out the email that I sent to audiology, which basically outlines most of what I've already said in the video. So there's a fair bit of repetition. If you don't want to watch it, then scroll on, obviously. I think it's about 5 minutes long. There are one or two things in there that I haven't mentioned, so you might want to watch, but just giving you the heads up. So, this is the 2-page email that I sent to the audiology department. It's a little bit long-winded, I'm afraid, but I'll read it out. I write once again to express my ongoing concerns about the symptoms I'm experiencing with my cochlear implant. I'm sure I remember being told at one of the pre-op meetings by the lady who was originally going to perform the surgery that if I should experience any dizziness or even fall over after my operation, then I should immediately seek advice. Well, I did, and I still am. To try and put things into perspective, I shall describe the sequence of events so far. Everything was going well until I decided to sleep on my right side for a couple of nights. That's the implant side. I subsequently woke up on the second night experiencing some very mild pain and discomfort. Not long later, the first and most severe incident took place when, on Tuesday the 14th of October 2025, I experienced a very sudden and very severe vertigo attack. At 8:36 a.m. that morning, I was standing in our conservatory when I suddenly heard several blip blip sounds in my ear, and within about 15 seconds I was lying on my back. Everything was spinning around. I had to remove my processor because the volume was unbearable. After approximately 20 minutes of this, I managed to crawl to the lavatory and was violently sick. At this point, I was also experiencing a gradual but rapid increase in a screaming, high-pitched tinnitus sound in my right ear. It got so bad that I thought it wouldn't stop, but thankfully it levelled off. I continued to experience these combined sensations until around 11:30 a.m. when paramedics arrived to find me still prostrate, unable to move on the bathroom floor. I was eventually taken to the Alexandra Hospital in Redditch, where I was examined, given an injection to try and help with the vertigo, which had absolutely no effect whatsoever, and eventually discharged at around 2100 that night with a course of antibiotics. The next day, I was given an appointment with the audiology team at the QE, and I have to say that they were brilliant. However, I should point out that I was unable to walk without assistance. The team recalibrated my processor, and I was able to use it again. The next day, I wore my processor. Symptoms improved rapidly. My balance improved. I was able to hear quite well again. 2 weeks later, by coincidence, on a Tuesday morning, again, 28th of October 2025, at 08:46 a.m, the same thing happened again. This time, the event was much less severe, possibly because I knew what to expect. Because I was upstairs in the bedroom at the time, I was able to lie down immediately. I kept my eyes closed, and the whole thing lasted for around 4 hours before the symptoms subsided and I was able to get up. The next day, the audiology team once again stepped up and gave me an appointment, and again my processor was recalibrated. It was explained to me that the volume change from the processor was likely due to a change in the impedance in the fluid surrounding the cochlea. This sounded completely reasonable, and I left with renewed confidence. However, 1 week later, and again on Tuesday at exactly 2:30 p.m, I was sitting in our living room when the grandfather clock struck the half hour. It was almost like somebody hit me in the head with a baseball bat. The same experience hit me again, but this time it was even less pronounced. The spinning only lasted a few seconds, but the tinnitus lasted for around 2 hours before subsiding again. I did not attend the audiology department this time, because on the last visit, the lady who dealt with me left 4 programs for me to cycle through, one of which was set to a very low level. This proved to be tolerable, and I used it the next day. On Saturday the 8th of November 2025, I had yet another similar experience. This one was again even less profound, and I only suffered a short spell of increased tinnitus. This brings me to today. Since the last attack on Saturday the 8th, I have not used my processor because, to be quite frank, I'm afraid to do so. When I put the processor on, I immediately feel more unbalanced, and although I can hear well with it, I am too unsure to keep using it. I have a constant sensation in the area of the implant. Sometimes there is very mild pain, but most of the time it just feels as though there is pressure there. If I strain in any way, it feels like the ear blocks and needs to pop. On Thursday the 6th of November 2025, I had a doctor's appointment because I was experiencing some intermittent stabbing pains in my ear. I was given a course of erythromycin antibiotics and was told that my ear did look slightly inflamed and had a build-up of wax. The antibiotics have made no difference. When I lean to my left, I immediately get a low humming sound, followed by a rapid increase in high-pitched tinnitus. If I then lean to the right, the sensations decrease almost immediately. A few days ago, I was sitting watching the television and I had an itch on my right ear. I absent-mindedly scratched the itch too hard, which put pressure on the implant. The result was very similar to all of the previous experiences. Last night, I awoke at 5 a.m. with severe high-pitched tinnitus because I'm forced to sleep on my left side to avoid putting pressure on the implant. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor, and nor am I an expert. But all of this tells me that there is some sort of swelling or inflammation connected to my implant and that it is directly causing these problems. I assume it is putting pressure on some nerve or nerves. I have to say I'm increasingly concerned, and I have no confidence in using the processor at all at the moment. Although the dizziness and the overall effects I experienced during these episodes have decreased dramatically, the feeling of pressure has definitely not improved, and the reduced episodes are becoming more frequent. I would like a professional opinion on this matter as soon as possible, please. I look forward to hearing from you. I know some of that's repeated what I've already said, but I felt it was worth reading out the entire email. On Tuesday the 3rd of December, I had an appointment at the audiology department at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham. It was with a specialist consultant and one of the team who has been helping me since my surgery. They concluded that my case and my symptoms were indeed unusual and required investigation. They're going to arrange a visit from a cochlear specialist for advanced device integrity testing. I also have a CT scan booked for later this month to see if we can understand what's happening. Is there any swelling? Is there any inflammation? Is the implant putting pressure on nerves, which is what I think it's doing? So, why am I telling you all of this? First, if you're considering a cochlear implant, please don't let my experience scare you away. Most people have fantastic outcomes. The success rate with this procedure and technology is very high. I went into this knowing all the risks, and I still believe I made the right decision. But I think it's important that people understand complications can happen. I'm 67 years old, and at this stage of life, you need to go in with your eyes open. At any stage of life, you need to go in with your eyes open. Secondly, if you've had a cochlear implant and you're experiencing problems, whether similar to mine or completely different, please don't suffer in silence. Document everything. Be persistent with your medical team. And thirdly, to any medical professionals and audiologists who may be watching, or to anyone who has a cochlear implant, if you've seen or heard of cases like mine or experienced anything similar to this, if you have insights or information, I genuinely appreciate hearing from you. This is all new territory for me. So, this isn't the end of my story, of course. I'll be making follow-up videos as my situation progresses. After the CT scan at the end of this month, I'll produce a new video to update with what's found, if anything. Whatever happens, I'll attempt to keep sharing the reality of the journey, the good, the bad, the uncertain. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing. I'll be documenting the journey as it unfolds, and here's what I really want to know. Have you or someone you know dealt with cochlear implants? What was your experience? Share in the comments below, please. Your insights may help others going through similar situations. Thanks for watching and listening to my story, and take care.